Let me answer two questions you might have brought with you. If you suffer from constipation, bloating, or digestive discomfort and have tried everything without success, this episode helps you understand why from the root. If you have heard of probiotics, dietary fiber, and the gut-brain axis but cannot figure out which ones work and which are marketing, this episode separates the science from the hype. In 2026, a term called fiber maxing surged 115% in search engines. Global searches for dietary fiber surpassed protein for the first time in history. What does this mean? The public has finally begun to realize that health is not just about what you supplement, but what you feed, and what you feed is not yourself. It is the invisible tenants living in your gut. You host approximately 38 trillion bacteria in your body. Together, they weigh about half a kilogram to 1 kilogram, roughly the same as your brain. Their genetic material is more than 200 times your own. Science calls this invisible organ the gut microbiome. And what this episode will tell you is that this organ does not just manage digestion, it influences your mood, your immune system, your weight, and even what you crave to eat. What is the largest organ in the human body? Many say the liver, some say the skin. Both are correct if you only count organs made of human cells. But if you include the microorganisms living inside you, the answer changes. You carry approximately 38 trillion bacteria, the vast majority in your intestine. This figure was recalculated in 2016 and published in Nature. The previously popular claim of 100 trillion was found to be an overestimate. Even the revised number is astonishing. Bacterial cells nearly match human cells 1-to-1. In other words, you are not purely human. You are a superorganism composed of human cells and bacterial cells, a walking ecosystem. The scale of this ecosystem is not just about cell count. The total genetic content of the gut microbiome is 150 to 200 times that of the human genome. This means your gut bacteria possess biochemical capabilities far exceeding your own. They can digest fibers you cannot. They can synthesize vitamins you cannot. They can metabolize chemicals your body has no enzymes for. Science took more than 2 centuries to recognize this. Leeuwenhoek saw bacteria in the 17th century, but not until the late 20th century. With the advent of genetic sequencing, did researchers discover that the complexity of the gut microbiome rivals a tropical rainforest in 2007. The United States launched the Human Microbiome Project to systematically survey this internal continent. Following the model of the Human Genome Project, the preliminary results published in 2012 shocked the field. The variation between individuals' microbiomes is far greater than genetic variation. To understand why the microbiome matters so much, we need to see how this relationship began. For the first 2 billion years of life on Earth, there were only bacteria. They were the ultimate survivors, incredibly diverse, rapidly reproducing, adapting to every environment. Then eukaryotic cells appeared. The mainstream theory holds that an archaeon engulfed a bacterium without digesting it, forming a symbiosis that engulfed bacterium eventually became the mitochondrion, the power plant in every one of your cells. In other words, every cell in your body is a descendant of that ancient symbiosis. Fast forward to mammals. A fetus in the womb is nearly sterile. The process of birth is the first massive inoculation passing through the birth canal. The infant receives the mother's first batch of vaginal and intestinal bacteria. Breastfeeding provides a second batch. Breast milk contains not just nutrients but specific oligosaccharides that the infant cannot digest at all. These sugars exist for one purpose: to feed the baby's gut bacteria. Pause on the elegance of this design. The mother's body is producing a substance specifically to feed bacteria that the baby itself cannot digest. Evolution does not waste energy on useless things. These bacteria are so critical to infant survival that the mother evolved an entire mechanism to supply them. From that day forward, the microbiome accompanies the host for life. They help digest sugars in breast milk, train the immune system to distinguish friend from foe, synthesize vitamin K and some B vitamins, and occupy the intestine intestinal wall to prevent pathogenic bacteria from gaining a foothold. In return, you provide them with a warm home and a steady food supply. A deal that has run for millions of years until the last century, when human diet and lifestyle changed so dramatically that the deal began to break down. Now we enter today's hottest topic: dietary fiber. Protein, fat, carbohydrates, vitamins, minerals, water, the 6 standard nutrients in every textbook. But over the past 2 decades, a growing number of scientists have called for dietary fiber to be recognized as the 7th nutrient. The reason is simple. It may not provide calories, but it is the primary food of the gut microbiome. What is dietary fiber? It is the part of plant cell walls that human digestive enzymes cannot break down. You eat it. Your stomach and small intestine cannot process it, and it arrives undigested in the colon, where the bacteria begin their feast. When bacteria ferment fiber, they produce a range of metabolites, the most important of which are called short-chain fatty acids. This is not an obscure chemistry term. It is a critical fuel for your entire body. Now, the numbers. The World Health Organization and most dietary guidelines recommend 25 to 30 grams of fiber per day. The actual intake in developed countries averages about 15 grams in urban China. It is approximately 11 grams. In other words, the vast majority of people's gut bacteria are in a state of chronic starvation. This is why fiber searches exploded in 2026. When the protein powder and the vitamin market saturated, people finally began to realize no matter how good the supplements are, if the bacteria themselves are starving, nothing works. Walk into a supermarket and you will see countless products labeled high fiber. But the differences between types of fiber can be greater than the difference between rice and beef. The first type, soluble fiber. As the name suggests, it dissolves in water, forming a gel-like substance. Beta-glucan in oats, pectin in beans and apples. These belong to this category. They act like a sponge, absorbing water in the intestine, slowing food transit, stabilizing blood sugar, and lowering cholesterol. The second type, insoluble fiber. It does not dissolve in water and acts like a brush. Cellulose in whole wheat, nuts, and vegetable stock. It adds bulk to stool and promotes intestinal motility. The third type, and the hottest in current research, fermentable fiber. Technically not a separate category, but a subset of the first two, those fibers that can be fermented by gut bacteria. Inulin-resistant starch, fructooligosaccharides. Their greatest value lies not in physical action, but in the metabolite bacteria produce when they consume these fibers. A rough guide for constipation: eat more insoluble fiber. To feed your microbiome, eat more fermentable fiber. To control blood sugar and cholesterol, eat more soluble fiber. Beans appear in almost every category. They are the all-around player of the fiber world. Now, we reach the most fascinating link in the entire scientific chain. You eat fiber. You cannot digest it. Bacteria eat fiber. Bacteria ferment fiber, producing short-chain fatty acids, primarily three: acetate, propionate, and butyrate. These three acids may sound unremarkable, but they are the language through which your gut bacteria communicate with your body. Butyrate is the preferred fuel of colon cells, better than glucose. If your microbiome lacks butyrate-producing bacteria, your colonocytes become malnourished and the gut barrier weakens. This is the microbial version of a leaky gut. Propionate is primarily utilized in the liver, participating in glucose metabolism and cholesterol regulation. Acetate enters systemic circulation and reaches the brain, potentially influencing appetite regulation. This entire chain, from fiber to bacteria to short-chain fatty acids to human cells, is the mechanism behind prebiotics. You are not feeding yourself directly. You are feeding your bacteria so they can produce substances that benefit you. You are the middleman. The real manufacturer is the microbiome. Now we enter the most cutting-edge and exciting part of the entire field. Your gut contains an independent nervous system, the enteric nervous system. It comprises approximately 500 million neurons, comparable to the brain of a cat. It can operate completely independently of the brain, managing peristalsis, secretion, and blood flow. Scientists long knew about this second brain, but assumed it was merely an automated plumbing management system. Then a discovery discovery over the past 2 decades changed everything. The gut-brain axis. The core of this axis is the vagus nerve. It runs from the brainstem to the abdomen and is the most direct communication cable between the brain and the internal organs. The critical number, 90% of vagus nerve fibers are afferent, meaning information flows primarily from the gut to the brain, not the other way around. Your gut is constantly reporting to your brain. The reports include what nutrients are present, what chemicals are detected, and what the bacteria are doing today. The brain uses these reports to make decisions not just about hunger and satiety, but about mood, cognition, and your mental state. Another number, over 90% of serotonin, the neurotransmitter commonly called the happiness hormone, is produced in the gut, not the brain. While gut serotonin cannot cross the blood-brain barrier, it influences vagal signaling, indirectly affecting mood regulation. What this means, your emotional state depends significantly on how well the bacteria in your gut are doing today. Obese and thin individuals have different microbiomes. This is one of the most robust findings of the past 15 years. Specifically, obese individuals tend to have relatively more firmicutes and fewer bacteroidetes. This ratio correlates with body weight across multiple studies. Scientists can predict a person's weight more accurately from their microbiome composition than from their genes. The classic experiment, transplanting the microbiome from obese mice to germ-free mice, even eating the same amount. The germ-free mice gained weight. The reverse also works. The microbiome is not a bystander. It directly participates in energy extraction and fat storage. One mechanism, certain bacteria are more efficient at extracting calories from food. The same banana microbiome might extract 90 calories for you. Microbiome B might extract 110. The difference accumulates day by day into a divergence in body weight. Now, the topic most people care about and most easily exploited, probiotic supplement. The definition, live microorganisms that, when administered in adequate amounts, confer a health benefit on the host. Keywords, adequate, live, beneficial. The good news, specific strains do have evidence-based support for specific conditions. Certain lactobacillus strains prevent antibiotic-associated diarrhea. Certain bifidobacterium strains relieve some irritable bowel symptoms. These are not marketing claims. They have clinical trial support. The bad news, 3 truths the industry does not want you to know. Truth 1, survival rate. The number on the label is the count at the factory through transport, storage, and shelf life. The live count drops dramatically. More critically, stomach acid kills a large percentage of what you swallow. Truth 2, colonization rate. Even if live bacteria reach the colon, will they stay? Most commercial strains are flushed out within days. This means you need to keep taking them to maintain any effect. An excellent business model, but perhaps not the best health strategy. Truth 3, strain specificity. The benefits of probiotics are strain specific. Not all lactobacillus are the same, but commercial products often list only the species name, not the strain number. This is like saying buy a car without telling you the brand or model. The honest answer, if you have a specific problem, choosing the right strain may help. If you just want to improve general health, the evidence is much weaker. Investing in fiber to feed your existing bacteria may be more cost-effective than buying new bacteria. After 8 chapters of science, here is a practical action plan. First, eat 25 to 30 grams of fiber daily. One bowl of oatmeal is about 4 grams, an apple about 4 grams, a bowl of brown rice about 3 grams, a handful of almonds about 3 grams, a bowl of beans about 8 grams. Second, diversify your plant foods. Aim for 30 different plants per week. Vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans, nuts, seeds, herbs. Third, include fermented foods daily. At least 1 serving of live culture food, yogurt, kimchi, miso soup, natto. Fourth, reduce ultra-processed foods. Emulsifiers, artificial sweeteners, and preservatives may disrupt microbiome balance. Fifth, use antibiotics only when necessary. If you must, supplement with probiotics and increase fiber afterward. Sixth, manage stress and sleep. Stress affects gut motility and microbiome compositions through cortisol. None of these requires expensive supplements. The core strategy for microbiome health is not what new things you put in, but how you live to keep your existing bacteria thriving. 3 things to take away. First, fiber does not feed you directly. It feeds your bacteria, who then produce substances that benefit you. You are the middleman. The bacteria are the factory. Second, 70% of your immune system and 90% of your serotonin are in the gut. What happens in your belly matters far more than you think. Third, the core of microbiome health is not what you buy, but how you eat. Diverse plant foods plus fermented products minus ultra-processed items beats any supplement on the market.